Hi, my name is Christy Sherdahl, and I'm a nurse from Outpatient Surgery Center at the University of Virginia. I am trained as a circulator and a scrub for certain specialties such as GYN, urology, and medical surgical. I am also PRN on labor and delivery as a surgical scrub nurse for C-sections. And today I want to talk about surgery. In today's society, people want fast and safe surgical procedures so they can get on with their life. But what about the patients getting a call the next day saying that the doctor noticed that instruments were contaminated with HIV or MRSA? Or if those patients received a call saying that during the procedure, instruments that were used on their surgery had bone and tissue discovered on it. How would you think those families and those patients would feel? And that got me thinking, who is responsible for processing these instruments correctly? What can be done to reduce these kinds of situations from ever happening again? The area called sterile supply and surgical processing are made up of individuals who are responsible for cleaning, decontaminating, processing, sterilizing, assembling, testing, and otherwise managing the instruments and equipment needed in patient care, especially during surgery. These individuals usually have high school education. They can read at a high school level, but what other skills or certifications or education is needed to show that they are competent in keeping these instruments clean and packaged properly and they aren't broken and safe from pathogens, which all of these put together can keep the infection rate down? What can be done or is available to get these individuals in sterile supply trained? Mr. Berg, in an article called Sterile Processing, Where We Are Now and What Lies Ahead, has something to say about getting education and certification for these individuals. Quote, with the responsibility and processes in sterile processing becoming more complex, there are higher demands on the people who do this job. Certification provides minimal competency in the knowledge areas in order to standardize sterile processing practices. Certification and the required ongoing education makes personnel aware of the current standards and requirements and best practices. When we follow standardized procedures, we are contributing to the prevention of disease transmission and surgical site infections. And I'd like to talk about what we can do for these individuals. 1, encourage them to sign up for a certification program. There are many surgical programs throughout the nation, and they cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a program. These individuals will receive classes in anatomy and physiology, microbiology, infection prevention, medical terminology, and they would definitely get hands-on training. And by the end of 6 to 9 months, they will be certified in surgical supply instrumentation. And the fact is New Jersey and New York have mandatory requirements in their hospitals to have all techs who deal in sterile supply to be certified. And soon many other states are requiring that same standard as well. Another thing we can do is have in-house hospital training, just like what the RNs and PCTs receive when they get hired for their job. And what can be included in this training is to have annual competencies, training classes on the computer, PowerPoint classes that someone would come in and talk about surgeries and instruments, tours and observations of surgical suites and the surgeries actually going on. And hopefully with this program that the individuals can understand not just how to process and sterilize instruments, but the why. And lastly, communication between all the stakeholders. If we have medical doctors and nurses and sterile supply and sterile processing and surgical techs and charge nurses all involved talking about instrumentation and the processing and packaging of it and the correct way to do it, maybe some ideas will come through that to help decrease infection rates for patients. There are some barriers to implementing this kind of regimen, and it usually comes down to money, like where it's going to come from and what is budgeted for the unit. CFOs, donors, directors may be against such venture. It is very costly to hire people to teach and to create programs for individuals who are hired for sterile supply and processing. But there are things out there that are available, such as grants and scholarships, and sometimes hospitals have reimbursement programs. And if we can help the hospital and these directors and CFOs to see in the long run that by putting money in now, that millions of lives and millions of money will be saved every year. Surgeries will start on time because the instruments will have been processed correctly. Infection costs for patients will go down, where the average cost is anywhere from $30,000 to $500,000 to help a patient who has been infected by surgical instrumentation that has been dirty. And more surgeries will be signed up because of all that saved time. And society would see this as a great investment. As a main stakeholder in this, they will be happy to see that patients are being treated as individuals and not just numbers. And if the hospital doesn't rectify the lack of education for workers in sterile supply, the public may boycott the hospital or may write their senator or congressman about the issue. And if politicians get involved, they may create laws or certain standards that may decrease the money given to hospitals. They may even talk negatively about the hospital, which would in turn give the hospital a bad reputation, which will mean loss of profit. So who matters most in the end? The patient. They want to be satisfied, secure, safe. They want peace of mind. Every effort should be made to secure education for individuals in sterile supply and processing. Time and money should be held out so these individuals can help decrease infection for all. And that way, it will save the patient from getting a terrible phone call.